Hello and welcome to The Chat, the official podcast of Chatham County Government. I'm your host, Will Peebles from the Public Information Office, and today I got a special treat for you for the start of hurricane season. CEMA Director Dennis Jones. Dennis, how are you, man?
I'm good, Will. Thank you for helping put this together and also getting the message out.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming on and helping us do just that. So hurricane season starts on June 1st, runs through November 31st, if I'm not...
November 30th.
The 30th, because December's the 31st,
Right.
and they alternate. What does it look like for CEMA, when the end of May happens and June 1st rolls around, when it's hurricane season?
Yeah, well, we actually start preparing for hurricane season well before June 1st. We start in the wintertime, putting plans together, confirming partnerships, making sure that we're updating anything that needs to be updated in our planning efforts. So we start early on, as early as February and March, just making sure that all of our I's are dotted, our T's are crossed, all of our check boxes are checked, and it takes us a good 3, potentially 4 months to really put everything in place and to reconfirm all of the commitments and all of the efforts that go into ensuring that we're prepared for hurricane season.
Because it's kind of a community effort, It's
Right.
not just CEMA suits up and gets ready to go, and that's the response. It's Red Cross, it's Second Harvest, it's the whole gamut from prep to recovery. How do you guys foster those partnerships? Is it just picking up the phone and saying, hey?
It's a huge effort, and it's something that you can't create at a moment's notice. It has to be built over time. You have to know who you're talking to. You have to have those relationships in place so that when the hurricane does threaten our area, everybody's reacting and they know who to coordinate with, they know who to talk to. And also having that relationship just helps foster that more efficient and more effective response effort.
Gotcha. And for anyone who's lived here for a little while, we know what it feels like when they first see that little spiral start forming out there in the middle of the Atlantic, or sometimes in the Gulf. We've learned to have to worry about that recently, for me anyway. So tell me a little bit about what happens at that point. What is CEMA doing when there's a storm? It's out there. We don't know the track yet. It's too early to tell. What are you guys doing to prep?
Yeah, we're watching every development that's either in the Gulf or in the Atlantic. And we're constantly evaluating that particular system, the atmospheric conditions that could potentially affect that system, and whether or not it has the potential to come our way. So we're watching every single system. The advisories are issued every 12 hours whenever it's early in its development, and then it'll slowly migrate. If it becomes stronger, it'll migrate into every 6 hours as far as the advisories go on that system. So we're watching every single advisory, every single update that comes out on each of those systems if they have a potential to come our way. So we're looking at that. We're evaluating timing. We're evaluating potential impacts, and we're just making sure that we're communicating that information out to our partners as relevant as possible.
And don't I know that? Yeah, so it's always fun when, I say fun, it's always a bit of existential dread when CEMA gives PIO the call and is like, hey, we're watching it, we may activate, this is what's going on. And it's interesting because the county's response, it is very much led by CEMA and you and your team, but it is a lot of other departments. There's a lot of people who volunteer their time and they come in, us included, not trying to toot our own horn or anything, but it's everybody. Talk about how that works within the county. How do you get people to sign up for this?
Well, when you're looking at a response to an event that's going to cover the entire coast, our focus is Chatham County, and it covers all the coordination efforts regarding transportation, communications, public works, health and human services, and the list goes on and on, utilities. So it's not something that CEMA can do by ourselves. We've got to ensure that we bring in partners who are subject matter experts in those fields so that we can rely on their expertise in order to effect that response effort. You mentioned public information. There's a huge component as far as getting that message out. We're not subject matter experts in getting the message out. We know what the message needs to say, but we lean toward those subject matter experts to craft that message and then also ensure that it gets distributed to the maximum amount of people that we can get it out to. And that's very complex when it comes to that because you got different demographics that receive information different ways. So you've got to ensure that the information you're putting out is reaching as many people as possible in the mediums by which they receive information and also in the format by which they receive information. You communicate with a boomer differently than you communicate with a Gen Zer. So using expertise not only in the public information field, but in public works, in transportation, in police, in fire, in EMS, using all of those subject matter expertise to make sure that we understand that we're communicating that message out. We're making those decisions in the most effective manner, using those subject matter experts to help guide that response effort.
And you can sign up for those, and we'll make sure to include a link in the description of this podcast where you can sign up for CEMA alerts, which are alerts that go out during the events like hurricanes. It's not just hurricanes. I say events like hurricanes because we've had a lot of snowstorms lately, and we've had to use it for that too. Tornadoes, that kind of thing. Yeah, so, and we'll come back to that a little bit later because I do want to touch on CEMA alerts as well as where you can get this information when something's happening. But yeah, so Dennis, tell me a little bit about what this hurricane season looks like. I know y'all don't like to predict. I know we're in a La Nina, is that right?
Right.
Yeah, so what does that mean in terms of expectancy?
Well, there are predictions for this hurricane season, and they are expecting this to be an average season. So that's good news. However, we don't really focus on whether it's an above average, below average, or whether it's an average season. Our focus is to look at each storm because it only takes one storm to affect Chatham County. So we're looking at every storm, regardless of whether it comes late in the year or early in the year. We're watching every system that could potentially come our way. So we don't really focus a lot on whether it's an active or if it's projected to be an above average or below average season because we're watching every single storm. So it's the same for us throughout the year.
Makes sense. Yeah. So, yeah, I wanted just to touch on briefly this because I don't like tempting fate in this way. I'm very superstitious when it comes to hurricanes. What is the response like when there is a hit? When we have something like a Debbie or a Helene, how does that change CEMA's posture and what happens with coordination there?
Yeah, it's a phased approach when we're looking at a response to a hurricane event. So we use what we call operating conditions. There's also different readiness levels that have different names. But essentially, you know, as a storm is coming our way, we're watching it, as I mentioned, and we would advance into operating condition 4. And that's a phase where we are communicating out to our partners to ensure that everybody understands there's a storm out there. It has a potential to come our way. We're making sure everybody's ready. The next phase is we actually start moving assets, and that's OPCON 3 or operating condition 3. We start putting things in place. So in 4, we're communicating, we're making sure everybody's ready. In OPCON 3, we're starting to put things in place. And then with OPCON 2, that's when we start moving people. So we do that with 2, and also we wrap things up with operating condition 1. So it's a phased approach. We communicate early, we start putting assets in place to be ready to start moving people, and then we start shutting things down. So it's a very intentional approach as to how we look at a hurricane approaching our coast. And that operating condition 4, where we start communicating, starts 120 hours before the arrival of tropical storm force winds. So we're not focused on the center of circulation because it could stay off the coast, as several storms have, that have a significant impact into Chatham County. So we're always focused on what that outer edge of that storm looks like. And all of our decision making is predicated on the arrival of tropical storm force winds. So what we estimate that to be, we back that up 120 hours. That's when we start communicating with our partners. We back that up to 72 hours. That's when we start putting things in place. And then we progressively work through that cycle to ensure that we're as ready as possible.
And that's all very nerve-wracking and scary time. It's not here yet. It's not happening yet. But it is always good to be prepared. You're a Boy Scout. You know that as well as anybody. What should folks do right now? What can they do to ensure that there is a plan in place, that they're ready when and if something like this does happen this year?
Yeah, you know, having the greatest amount of resiliency for a county is all about individual preparedness. It goes down to the individual. It goes down to the person who is listening to this podcast and ensuring that they are ready for a hurricane event, for a tornado event, a winter storm event, for any type of emergency or disaster that could potentially affect them or their families. And that goes down to having a plan and having a kit. Those are the basics of being prepared. Understanding what the threats are to our community, putting a disaster plan together. How are you going to communicate with family members? Where are you going to go if you have to evacuate? How are you going to get there? What routes are you going to take? Plan all of that out now so you're not trying to figure it out at the time of the emergency or disaster. And then also build a disaster kit, something that's unique to you, to your family, things that have comfort items, things that have essential items like batteries and flashlights and canned foods and can opener. Put all those in a container, put them in your closet. They're there for you. If you need them at a moment's notice, all you got to do is go in and grab it. You don't have to worry about those essentials. You don't have to worry about those comfort items. If you are without power for 12 hours, 24 hours, you got some of those elements already assembled into a kit. It's in your closet. Go grab it, pull it out. It's available to you. You're not trying to put things together at the last minute.
Makes sense. And another thing that we touched on a little bit earlier, CEMA alerts. Tell me about those.
CEMA alerts are used for us to communicate important information throughout the community for emerging or potential disaster situations. It's also used to help keep the community updated on situations that are actually occurring throughout the community. So we use that sparingly. We make sure that we are not sending a lot of non-emergency or non-disaster related information. It truly is an alerting tool for us, and it's one tool in a great toolbox. But it reaches the most amount of people, so we encourage people to really sign up for CEMA Alert. We're not going to overload your phones or your emails with unnecessary information. Everything that we send out is relevant. Either it's a weather-related issue, it's information about where you can get resources during the time of disaster or emergency. So it's all relevant information for the threat, emerging or actual threat that is occurring throughout the community.
Gotcha. All right. Well, Dennis, thank you so much for joining us. And I just want to say, because I don't tell you enough, the times where I feel like I am helping my community the most in this job have been in that doggone EOC. I tell you what, man, it's for better or worse, it really does. You go home feeling like you did something that day.
Yeah, it's one of those things that a lot of people expect, but they really don't see what goes into ensuring that we have effective communication, or ensuring that police are doing what they're doing, or fire's doing what they're, or the health and medical systems are remaining operational. There's a lot of effort that goes into a lot of those different disciplines just to ensure that we can continue providing the government services and also those basic health and human services that the community requires.
Yeah, and when everything's shut down and like everybody is in that same room, you really do feel like threaded into the weave of Chatham County as a whole. Feels awesome. But anyway,
good.
So thanks for that experience, and thanks for coming on today. We appreciate you, Dennis. And if you would like to learn more about that, we will be sure to include every link that we have to hurricane preparedness stuff on our website, as well as CEMA's website, which is chathamemergency.org. But thank you all for joining us. I hope you have a good and safe hurricane season. And from all of us here at the chat, we'll see you next time.